sipping coffee, dancing. Pretty women are a wonder. Pretty women sitting in the window or standing on the stair. Something in them cheers the air. Pretty women silhouetted, stay within you, glancing, stay forever, breathing lightly. Pretty women, blowing out their candles or combing out their hair. Even when they leave you in bed, they still are there with you. Ah, pretty women at the mirror in their garden.
I've been haunted by this woman's music over the last week or so, and what she's doing is kind of remarkable too. Her name is Larry Ward, and she's now essentially put out 2 albums in which she takes Sondheim songs and kind of re-musicalizes them, which is kind of a gutsy thing to do with Sondheim. But, you know, she changes some majors to minors and minors to majors and puts in little licks that weren't there before. And I don't know, she kind of finds stuff behind the I can't say visible, but behind the most audible part of the melody, and does other things with them. And it doesn't always work. And in fact, every time she starts one of these songs, I think this is not going to work. And, you know, 80% of the time I'm wrong. If I have a complaint with her, there is a little bit of a sameness that kind of creeps in to her handling of this. On the other hand, that song, Pretty Women, which is from Sweeney Todd, it needed this. Because in Sweeney Todd, like pretty much everything in Sweeney Todd, it is part of an incredibly grim and macabre and foreboding moment. And it's Sweeney Todd and the judge are both kind of talking about or singing about the spell that Pretty Women cast upon them, causes them to do horrible things. So, but it's a beautiful song. It's a perversely beautiful song. So I'm thrilled by this, and I wanted to share it with you. And her name is Larry Ward, E-L-E-R-I, and then Ward, just like Ward. All right, so today is Ask or Tell Me Anything. The number is 888-720-WNPR. If you're not familiar with this format, it's because there is no format. But you should be familiar with the fact that there is no format. And so you can call up about anything. 888-720-9677. And I will either have something to say about it or I won't. But either way, you will be entertained, either by my clever insights or my cluelessness. And what else did I want to say? Oh, before we go to the calls, and we got some interesting calls on the board already. Before we go to the calls, I did say before the news that I feel as though, first of all, I'm not at my best today. And the reason I'm not at my best is partly because of the time change. And I don't like to be a time change whiner. And this is actually my preferred time change. Spring ahead is better for me than fall back because I don't like it getting dark. Like there's certain things I get out of around 5:30. And twice a week I leave something around, 5 or 5:30. I teach until 5:30. And I don't like it to be dark when I walk out. Like I don't like the experience of walking in to something when it's daylight and then walking out and it's pitch black, whatever it is. I would. It's a problem I have with late afternoon movies back when I went to movies anyway. I had that problem. But I do feel as though we're set up to fail here. We're set up to fail, particularly on this day. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do and read and get to today, and I just felt the time slipping away from me. And it feels like you're missing more than an hour. You can really only be missing an hour, but it feels maybe because of your level of disorientation, like you're cheated out of more than an hour. And so my proposal today is that we either stop doing this, that would be the preferable thing, or if we're going to continue doing this, I think the Monday after the spring forward should be called We Understand Day. And, you show up to work and you just don't have it. You got no mojo. We understand. We understand. We understand that you tried to get everything done and you didn't. We understand because there's an hour missing or something. Something is terribly wrong. That would be the other name for the day, I guess. Something is terribly wrong day. All right. A little bit later, if there's time, I'll tell you one of the reasons that this has hit me a little harder this year than it typically does. But the main purpose of this format is to let you talk. 888-720-WNPR. You may call up about any topic. There are no limits. There are no boundaries, which, shouldn't work, but sometimes does. 888-720-9677. Let's go to Anthony in New Haven. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Colin. Second-time caller. Love the show.
Well, thank you.
And by the way, just before I get to my question, I too have a similar issues with late afternoon movies, and for that reason, I will specifically go to movies earlier in the afternoon, especially fall and winter. So I share your concern there.
Yeah, because it's like the world. It's like over 2 hours, the world ended, right? You went in, the world was
Exactly.
fine. The sun was in the sky. You come out, there's pitch black. The world is clearly ended. Anyway, continue.
Sure. So I work in a large office, and in the office break room, there is a bag of chips that has been there for several months and is calling my name. So I'm curious whether there's a statute of limitations on food left in the office break room. And if so, is that different for something perishable like an apple as opposed to a bag of chips?
All right, so I need details on this. So this is an unopened bag of chips, is it kind of like a single serving unopened bag of chips?
Yes.
All right, and it's out like on some table or countertop?
Right, correct.
And it's been weeks, months?
Months.
Oh, you can eat it. Yeah. I mean, you can eat it. I think you can eat it guilt-free. I mean, it is... There are rules that keep our society held together and prevent us from descending into chaos. Obviously, a lot of those rules currently are not working, but let's set that aside for a moment. But it does seem to me here is an unattended bag of chips. The person who owned this bag of chips no longer probably even remembers owning the bag of chips. If the person cared about the bag of chips, it wouldn't be sitting there. It would either be inside the person's stomach or at the person's house. It wouldn't be sitting up there in what is a semi-public place. So I would feel that you could eat the chips if you felt like it was important to leave a note. You could leave a note that said that I told you could eat the chips. And you could, provide them with my contact information. But no, I feel it is a complicated thing. A break room is a complicated place because it's semi-public, right? I mean, the average schmo can't walk in off the street and eat the chips that are there. These are all just, it's shared space among coworkers. And there's so many things that can go wrong. We have in the past had a problem with people just failing to maintain the sink, just putting stuff in the sink and just leaving it there. And at times, the buildup of stuff that's in the sink is just, a little bit terrifying. And you never know who those people are because whatever goes, I mean, one thing that I can assure you about you and these chips is when you eat them, there'll be nobody else in sight, right? Everybody does their sociopathic break room stuff when there's nobody else there. If there's 8 people in there, you're not going to go in there and eat those chips. And that's everything that goes wrong in break rooms goes wrong because the person is in there alone and suspends their principles. But I'm urging you to suspend your principles.
Okay, I will eat them guilt-free. And if I get caught, if someone walks in, I'll tell them that Colin McEnroe said it was okay.
You can rat me out. I swear to God, it's okay. I don't mind being ratted out. And I'll take the weight on this. I'm there for you. Plus,
Thanks, Colin.
This is all recoverable as a podcast, so you could always introduce it as evidence, even if I denied knowing you. All right, go be happy, snack well. I mean, I can't say the chips are going to do you any good, but chips are good. Chips are there to help us. All right, we have a somewhat more serious call. In fact, a considerably more serious call here, but we should talk about this too. Eric from Cheshire is calling. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Colin. First, I want to let you know that I understand completely about this spring forward stuff of 1 hour. So But what I'm calling about is a February 28th, I think it was 28th or 29th, podcast of All Things Considered, in which involved a discussion of a woman in Texas named Lauren Miller, who was carrying twins, but found out that one of them had two fluid-filled masses in its head, and had a condition, was diagnosed with a condition called trisomy. And she had read online that 90% of the fetuses with that condition would die before birth. And she was also advised by a genetic counselor to abort that fetus to prevent complications for its twin as well as for her. But that the wall she ran into was the fact that the Texas abortion ban prohibits her from being able to get the procedure. So she had to travel all the way to Colorado in order to get this done, just to save one fetus as well as prevent complications for herself. And I just, I called about a month ago about a book written by Alex Bezerides titled Evolution Gone Wrong, which explains the complications and the risks that humans go through during pregnancy and childbirth as a result of becoming bipedal. And I strongly recommend that people read that particular book, because I think we all really need to be much more aware and educated about that type of thing.
Yeah, this story was mind-blowing, and it is a perfect example of why these comprehensive blanket laws, they don't work. They shouldn't be in place. Even a person who maybe had a different point of view from you or I about abortion, about reproductive choices, even that person, you would think, I think they started calling the fetuses A and B, and so B was the one with, I think it's called Edwards syndrome is the more informal name for it. So B was the one that was almost definitely not going to be viable. A was the one that could conceivably be saved, but only at the expense of B. I don't know. I mean, if you're so-called pro-life, why don't you want to do that? Why don't? Because the other possibility was both fetuses lose. Maybe the birth mother loses too. Everybody loses. It seemed actually like the kind of thing that would be easy to get consensus about. Except you've got this dumb law in the books. So, it's a great example of why you don't want to make that kind of law, why you want to give medical providers a certain amount of latitude and parents a certain amount of latitude. Anyway, okay. Is that it? Have we handled this?
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for mentioning that or having me call.
Okay. Thanks for that. We've got plenty of space for you to call in right now. It doesn't have to be something dire. It could be something about the chips in the break room or something along those lines. 888-720-WNPR. 888-720-9677. So the other reason that I'm a little foggy-headed today, I think, is because I've been experiencing for about a week upper back pain, like sort of over around my shoulder blades. And I know I've had, I'm a person of a certain age. And I have... lower back pain is part of being a human being, right? I think it's in the Bible. I think it's somewhere in Genesis. God creates man and then says the back is not right. I think what God said was God created man and he looked at man, he beheld man, and he said, you know what, I'll fix this in post. And then it just didn't work out because we went and sought knowledge on our own. And before you know it, you got all kinds of problems. But anyway, I get that over the course of my life, I will have lower back pain. Upper back pain I was not prepared for. And it wakes me up. No matter what I do, it wakes me up. So, so it wakes me up at like 5 a.m, except that thanks to whoever thought of this dumb clock thing, it wakes me up at what feels like 4 a.m. And So I don't lay this out as one of the great problems facing humankind, but it's my problem right now. And it's one of the reasons that I may not be as responsive to your needs as I would be ordinarily. But I will try my best. That's the only thing that I can do. The number again, 888-720-WNPR. That's 888-720-9677. I also want to say I have Mr. Carp envelopes here if I need them. Now, Mr. Carp, for those of you who are somewhat new to this format, Mr. Carp is somebody I went to college with. He was the smartest person at the college. And he is now, I think semi-retired is the right word, but he does send, he has a large room that I've now seen pictures of where he takes periodicals and he clips things out of the periodicals and then he underlines them somewhat cryptically. Like sometimes he'll send you a clip about something that you already knew about, but it will be underlined in such a manner as to suggest that there are things that you have not paid adequate attention to. And so you look at it all over again and you think, did I miss something here? Is there some real important lesson here that I just didn't pick up on the first go round? And there's no point in contacting him because he will give a Sphinx-like answer to a question like that. I mean, you're supposed to do some of the heavy lifting on your own. But the point is, I have more than one of these envelopes here. If an emergency arose, I could open one of them and talk about whatever the contents were. Or attempt to talk about whatever the contents are. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that, unless you want me to, in which case you could call 888-720-WNPR, 888-720-9677, and say the code word pineapple. Pineapple means you want me to open one of the Mr. Carp envelopes and attempt to cope with its cryptic contents. All right, time to go back to the phones here. A little bit later, I want to tell you about, let me tell you about two things right now, and then we're going to go to Iman, who's a regular here on Ask or Tell Me Anything. But so on Wednesday, we have a show about daydreaming. And we're still looking for a little bit more listener participation in the daydreaming show. Like, we'd like to know about your experiences with daydreaming. I might even have something here that I could read to you. Yes. We're going to talk about why we daydream and what daydream does to your brains. And we want to know about your experiences daydreaming. What do you daydream about? You can either email Colin Show, that's all one word, Colin Show at ctpublic.org, or you can leave a voicemail at 860-275-7214. I shouldn't be giving out multiple phone numbers on one show. That's too confusing. But once again, if you have a daydreaming thing to share with us, it's Colin Show, all one word, at ctpublic.org, or you can leave a voicemail at 860-275-7214. All right, now we're going to go back to the phones, and we will go to Iman as promised. Iman, you from New Haven have the floor.
Hi, Colin. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to talk about Ron DeSantis today. Mm-hmm. He's someone that I find extremely stressful, and I give him a lot of mental space. And I think that's because, like, the sort of way he governs Florida is, like, really terrifying. And I think there are, like, plenty of undemocratic things going on around this country. I think I'm particularly sensitive to Florida because I grew up there. My parents still live there. I still visit sometimes. But yeah, for me, I see him and he actually feels more terrifying than Trump. For me, I feel like the way in which Trump is undemocratic is, you know, somewhat blundering, somewhat clumsy, sort of like, oh, I lost the election. Like, no, I can't lose anything. Well, I feel like Ron DeSantis and it's just, you know, like with a scalpel passing bills and proposing bills that are truly stripping away freedoms in that state, which is ironic because he has a book called, like, I don't know, Courage to Be Free or some nonsense. And yeah, I feel like we need to be more vigilant, and I feel like it's scary that he will likely run for president, and that if people vote for him, I feel like it's a way of saying that, like, everything that he's doing in Florida, we want you to do to the U.S. So yeah, causes me a lot of stress. I think about this way too much. And yeah, that's what I want to talk about.
Well, we talk about Ron DeSantis quite a bit in the class that I teach, which is about political journalism. I feel that Ron DeSantis is unusual, not unique, but unusual in the sense that, for the most part, a politician who's the governor of a state when the state is not either New York or California, or maybe Texas, if you're not any of those things, then you are a governor who nobody has known anything about for a really long time. For most of your time in office, nobody has known anything about you except the people in your state. And I know Florida is also a very big state, but I think for a long time that was kind of true. And then what's happened with DeSantis, which has been interesting, is people have sort of gotten to know the name DeSantis. You know, they know that there's a person with that name, that he's probably going to run for president, as you just said, but they haven't really experienced him too much. Maybe a clip here, a clip there. And for most politicians who are seeking a much higher office than the one that they currently hold, exposure is so important. Name recognition is so important. They got to, people got to know who you are. And I think for Ron DeSantis, this actually might not be true. Because he strikes me as the kind of person who, the more you get to know him, yes, he's like Trump, but he's smarter than Trump. But he's also like Trump, but he's less amusing than Trump. I mean, say what you want about Trump, and I probably have said worse. But there's something kind of amusing about Trump when he's not being so appalling that you begin to fear for your own safety in any country that he might be the president of. When he's not that, then there's something kind of funny about him. And there's something very human about him. And those qualities don't seem to exist in DeSantis. He just seems like he's much smarter, obviously a very well-educated guy and stuff like that. But he seems, first of all, so angry and kind of without any form of charm. Trump has this sort of anti-charm, right? He's so weird and mushy, soft body and kind of strange, affect and everything. But there's something I could sort of get why people like him. I could never like him, but I could sort of get why people like him. He's like this kind of weird toy, this huge toy you bought at FAO Schwartz, and it doesn't really work right. And it's not that appealing to look at or anything, but you sort of, you can understand how somebody might bond with that toy. But I don't know, what would a Ron DeSantis toy even do? Like, would bite you or something, It's just like this really angry toy with snapping jaws that you would lock into the closet, never open the closet again. And so I actually do think he's going to have problems with that. And I think the way that he operates is going to cause problems. Obviously, the page one story in the New York Times on Sunday that connects to the call we had from Eric a few minutes ago in the way that he went after an elected prosecutor who was one of the prosecutors who said, I am not enforcing laws that, I regard as immoral or wrong or unconstitutional. And the Times investigation into that, once again, sort of produced that side of DeSantis that we know exists. I mean, maybe I'm making it too complicated. It's really like Trump. Trump has a lot of really bad ideas and a lot of unappealing characteristics, and many of the principles to which he hews are principles that many of us would reject. But he's also not really good at governing, and he doesn't really understand government. He's not that interested in government. He's interested in photo ops and chances to do media. And in particular, he's really interested in having people clap and scream and laugh when he talks. He's interested in approval. Whereas I think Ron DeSantis actually knows a lot about government, and that should scare you.
Yeah, and I also think I get what you were saying about him not scaling up well. I think my dad has said the same thing. He's like, there's no way he could be viable nationally. But people in Florida love Ron DeSantis. They really love him. And Miami, which used to be sort of in a purple state, a pretty solidly, vote Democratic every single presidential election, went very, very, very hard for Ron DeSantis this past election. So I just feel like there's a way in which, I don't know, he might surprise you come, next year. And I don't think we can hold off that, he's not charismatic enough and therefore he won't win. I don't think I don't know. I just think we need to, really pay attention and really be talking about the types of policies that he is enacting in Florida and ask ourselves those sorts of questions about what would that look like if he tried to make those applications nationally. And I don't think it is a promising trend. And there are governors around the country that are sort of like seeing what's happening in Florida and being like, that looks like a good thing to do, and I'm going to do that in my state too.
Yeah, by the way, I agree with you. I said he might not scale up well, but after 2016, I'm kind of out of the business of saying, oh, okay, I understand from everything that I've seen in my life so far what is probably going to happen here, because that was the heuristic I applied in 2016, and it led me to any number of false conclusions. So, yeah, just sort of spitballing it, just sort of eyeing DeSantis. It doesn't seem like that the better people get to know him, the more they're going to like him. But I'm not making any big bets at this point, and it's clear that the political arena has a whole different set of textures to it that it didn't used to have. So I think you should feel very free to worry. And perhaps there's even something more constructive than worrying that we can think of to do. But right now we have to take a break. Margaret, Anthony, Bernie, David, first of all, I loved your first album. Stay online. We'll get to you right after the break.
Sweep me out to sea, yeah. Weep for you and me, yeah. See where we can be if we just let it breathe. Take me to the sand, I'll cry away the salt. I know it's not your fault, just nothing left in us at all.
Everything is going out. Everything is going as planned, yeah. Everything moves along. Everything is fine, fine, fine. Well, I could be condemned to hell for every sin but littering. Well, I could slip on East River and crash into Queens. I'll skid around. And I've seen the cops and the robbers, and I know they dance the same well. I've seen a half a zillion girls and haven't spoken.
I know. I hate to pot it down too, but we're actually going to play more by. This is Soul Coughing. Mike Doughty is the mastermind behind Soul Coughing. I think we have a Mike Doughty solo song that will be used tomorrow too. So we're close to being able to go all Mike Doughty all the time. Right now, though, we're doing instead Ask or Tell Me Anything. Call 888-720-WNPR. That translates to 888-720-9677. If you're sitting there going, wait a minute, I don't have any letters on my keypad. I guess smartphones don't have that, do they? Smartphones. Do they not have letters? I'm looking in at Pants there. He's shaking his head, I think. They don't have letters, right? If you have a smartphone, you have to know the number, right? Yeah. Doesn't do any good? I'm looking right now. Okay. Let's pull it up right now. Let's investigate. Oh, no, they do. That was a falsehood. I just circulated an unverified falsehood. They still have the letters. So it's useful to everyone. All right, here we go. We are going to just go right down the chain here. We're going to start with Margaret in Greenport. Hi, Margaret. You have the floor.
Hi. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hear you just fine.
Okay, good. All right. So one thing I wanted to say was I like waking up early in the morning with light. That's why I like the standard time or whatever it is, just so you know. But the main thing I wanted to talk about was the whole thing about abortion rights, because when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, there was a lot of talk about the fact that it takes a male and a female to have a pregnancy. But women are the ones that are being blamed, accused, suffered, oppressed, and everything else. And the males who impregnate the females get away with nothing. They don't have any responsibility. We need to do something about that. And I know there were talks about, getting males to have vasectomies and a lot more education. There's just something wrong with this picture. It's almost like, okay, well, men can have sex, women can't. If they do, they're bad if they get pregnant. And this is Plus, the people that are pro-life are also pro-guns and war. So if they're pro-life, they should be against war and against guns, but they're not. It's an oxymoron, and I don't know. And the other thing, Colin, I wanted to say was, I'm a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
If you have upper back pain that's waking you up in the middle of the night, that's a signal you should pursue what's going on, because pain that wakes people up could be serious. So you don't want to just ignore it.
Right. I happened to have an appointment with my doctor last week, so he's already looked at me. I'm going through one of those difficult times. I don't know how old you are, and I won't inquire, but you reach an age where all the people who took care of you all your life retire, and then you're still alive. You're still, wait a second. So my dentist, I have a very good dentist, but she is the daughter of one of my high school classmates, which, that really kind of lets you know where you are in the timeline of existence. And then my PCP, my primary care physician, he retired last year. His name is Jack. He doesn't use a last name, so it's very hard to find him now. But so I have a new doctor who I like quite a bit. He seems like a very nice person. And I did have him look at all of this. I also, if I need to go to a chiropractor, I have Peter Meadow is my chiropractor on standby. So I don't want you to worry about all this. And you know what I've been doing? How they have, well, first of all, how the thing you roll on a tennis ball? You're a chiropractor, you know all about that. So I've been doing that, but I also have those kinds of kind of hard foam roller bars, that you can roll. Roller. Yeah, foam rollers. And so I've been doing that, although this involves getting down on the floor, and I have this large dog named Colin. And like if I'm rolling on a tennis ball, he comes over and he looks at me like, okay, I don't know this game. I've never seen this game before. So just like tell me what the rules are. Do I try to get the ball out from under you with my teeth, or what? I almost have to like bar the door so I can do this. But I don't want you to worry. I think I'm going to be fine.
Okay.
And if I'm not, they'll have somebody else host these shows. You'll just tune in.
No, you don't want. No, and also get some good massage therapy.
You'll just tune in one day, and Frankie Graziano will be there. Oh, don't worry about that. I have a regular massage therapist named Bonita. So it's all covered. It's covered. The problem is, and just to circle back to your original point. Yeah. I was talking about God before, and I think this is another one where if God could get a mulligan, if God could get a do-over on this. I think he'd say, okay, I'm going to make men, I'm going to make women, I'm going to make the backs way better. It's like Subarus get better every single time. There's no reason why, our backs shouldn't be in fine shape. I'm going to make good backs for them, and I'm making a rule where anybody can get pregnant. Men, women, anybody can get pregnant. So take your chances out there, boys and girls, but don't think it's going to be a one-sided thing, because it's not. And I feel like if God could do it all over again, which apparently God cannot do unless there's a multiverse, I think God would say, yeah, that's the way to do this. It never made any sense that half of the species had to bear all of the risk of death during childbirth and all the hardships that go with pregnancy and post-pregnancy, and the other half could go play golf. I don't think that could have possibly have been in the deity's mind. It's an oversight. It's an oversight. Fix it in post. That's, I think I could found an entire religious movement based on the idea of God wants to fix it in post. Like, it'll be a few weeks to turn this around. He's going to send everybody to Jim Chapdelaine, and Jim Chapdelaine's going to fix it in post. All right, so where are we going to go? We're going to go to Anthony in West Hartford. And yes, we'll go to Anthony in West Hartford. And then we're going to take another break, I think, because it's time is flying by. I think when they move the clocks, change the time, they actually also accelerate time. And they don't mention that fact. And by the way, Jonathan McPants, who's producing this show, I think he has a really good idea, which is, so you change the clocks half an hour once, right? And then you never touch them again? That's the plan? But which direction do you change them in, though? That's the part that I don't know. All right. Anthony from West Hartford, you have the conch shell.
Hello,
Hi.
Colin. Thanks for having me on. This is the first time calling. Big fan. I just wanted to talk about the lack of motorcycle helmet laws in the state of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of raise some awareness, maybe to your listeners or yourself. A lot of people I talk to, I find that they don't even realize that it's not a law. My father was killed in a motorcycle accident here in West Hartford last year, on a registered motorcycle because that was the law, with insurance because that was the law. But he was not wearing a helmet because he didn't have to.
Yeah, first of all, that is just terrible. I'm first of all so sorry that happened. And yeah, I think this is an area where people. Back when I was more of a state capitol reporter, I saw hearings on bills like this and everything, and I could never really understand it. I mean, I do understand it, and probably your father felt this way too. That there's a kind of freedom that's epitomized by a motorcycle. It's and the sense of liberation that some motorcycle.
I ride myself.
Yeah,
and I wasn't wearing a helmet either, like a fool.
Right.
Now I do.
Right.
But it's something has to change because it's not always about the people that are on the bike.
Yeah, it kind of ties into what Margaret was saying a couple seconds ago, which is, women get pregnant, men get women pregnant, and then they don't necessarily have to take any of the responsibilities. And this is another situation where a choice that one person makes has a ripple effect across a huge population. It has a ripple effect across the immediate family. People like you lose a loved one. Cops and ambulance workers have to deal with probably a pretty horrific situation at a scene. Right. The medical system gets saddled with what might be a somewhat less than necessary critical case. There's expenses that go into it that are often very, very high. So, yeah, but I think testimony from somebody like you is very powerful. Your life could conceivably be a very different life if your dad had been forced to wear a helmet.
Yeah, so that's all. I just wanted to put it out there. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks. Took a lot of courage to call and talk about that because it's hard. It's just a hard thing in your life. So, Anthony, I hope you feel okay, and you'll never feel entirely okay about this, but I hope it helped to say something today anyway. All right, we are going to take a break. We're going to come back, and then who knows what will happen.
Oh, my Colossus, I'm blind, but I can see this room so well. From our youth, our fossils I find, buried in lobbies of macabre hotels. Press your own foot on my own thigh. I fall in love with everyone I'm told, but when everyone I know is always on my mind, I find it's too much to behold.
It is time for me to say some thank yous. The first thank you is to Kat Pastor. She's our technical producer. And then this episode is produced by Jonathan McPants. He's there in the studio right now talking to people on the phone as they call up. Our senior producer is Lily Tyson. I don't know what she's doing right now, but it's whatever she's doing, she's making the world a more organized place, in this show, in particular, a more organized show. And that's good because otherwise we would spiral off into chaos. She's basically personally fighting the second law of thermodynamics right now. So anyway, we have like a new trend that started on this show because it started on our exclamation point show, which is that Danny Hart now texts me during the show to tell me things. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just telling you that this is like, I'm an air traffic controller now. This is the kind of stress that I live under. All right, here is Bernie from Hartford. Hi, Bernie.
Hi there.
You have the floor. You have the conch shell. You have everything.
All right. So here it is. So I listen to a lot of NPR, and we get these. You produce these ads. The one for the junk cars is just really egregious, and for whatever reason, I find it seems like that one gets played like 16 times a day. And I know once before on one of these calls, somebody called in about it, and you made the point that they're not ads, but I really believe they are ads because they're promoting CPTV, or CPBN. And so I know there's not much you can do about it, but since this is for griping, I just thought I would gripe.
So these are the ads that encourage you to donate your car when your car's on your. I actually did this once, at least once.
Good.
When your car was on your last legs, you donate it. You say, "Here, I don't want it anymore. You come get it." And maybe the problem isn't the ads. I mean, I think there might be two problems. One of them, and they're not ads anyway, but one of them is maybe the frequency with which they run. I agree that there are things that run on the airwaves of this fine company, this company which I regard as a paragon of public broadcasting excellence. Nonetheless, nobody's perfect. There are things, promo announcements that run too much, run to a point where they begin to annoy people. I completely side with you on that. And I think maybe the other way, maybe they just need to be sort of redone periodically and done possibly in a more conversational manner or just a different tone or something like that. But I think the idea is basically going, I think maybe you'd be less annoyed if we did it that way. The idea is a pretty good one.
I'm a sustaining member, too. Yeah. So, I feel invested.
No, I sort of like me, I own one share of Green Bay Packers stock. Mr. Carp bought it for me, but so I own the Green Bay Packers is, I think, the only professional sports franchise where the people own the team. We have no rich owners and stuff like that. So I feel, as an owner, I feel as though I should be able to tell them whether to re-sign Aaron Rodgers or not. Now, the truth is they won't listen to me, but I feel that way, and you feel that way because you're a sustaining member, and you should feel that way. And I will talk to somebody about this in the sternest tones. All right?
I really appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I own some really bad cars. I have a nice car now. I mean, it's not a fancy car or anything. It's a Subaru, but Subaru Outback. It's a lovely car. I've owned some really horrible cars, and I went through a period way later in life. So there's a time in your life when when you're 25 and through maybe 35, you can maybe justify, assuming that you haven't picked an incredibly remunerative career, you can sort of justify, okay, I'm going to buy a car for $3,000. I'm going to drive it until it doesn't work anymore. I was doing that. It's so embarrassing when I think about it. I think I might have been in my 50s continuing to do that and buying some pretty damn implausible cars too, including a Kia that actually had been sort of put together by the previous owner. Like they assembled it from, I don't know what. They just bought all kinds of different parts and put it together. But it wasn't made in a factory, that was my point. It was made by somebody, some guy. So anyway, but there was a car that was in that generation of cars, and I just gave it away. I gave it to this fine company because I didn't want it anymore. And I didn't want to, you know what you're spared? You're spared finding out what your car is actually worth. Because otherwise, if you take it to the dealership or you try to sell it yourself or something, it's just the news is going to be horrible. All right. Where am I supposed to go now? What am I supposed to do? Actually, since we're talking about cars, we'll go to David. Hi, David. You have the floor.
Well, speaking of cars,
yes.
My father is probably at least 15 years older than you, and he still does that with buying, cars for $3,000 and driving them till they're dead.
It's a lifestyle. It's sort of an automotive hobo lifestyle. It's like you're a hobo, but you don't need trains. You're just one step above the hobos who have to hop on trains. You have your own thing. That's what it's like. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. He picks up hobos too. Yeah. So I've written to you about this, but I am wondering what is going on with our state police cars, in that it seems to me that we now have a state police secret police force, because every single state police car that I have seen on the road, and maybe this is your experience also, is unmarked. You can't tell what car is a state police car for, and to the point, just last week I was getting into my car, which doesn't look unlike some of those SUVs, and I almost got into a police car. So I'm wondering what is the point behind this? I mean, if anything, you want to be able to recognize the police from a distance. You want to know that they're out there. You want to know that is the car that's pulled over on the side of the road, and they enhance security by their presence. And what do you think? Why are all these police cars hidden now?
Well, so the Connecticut State Police, they do have a tradition. It's been going on for a while. I mean, first of all, obviously, all police departments have some unmarked cars. And even if they're doing traffic enforcement and they want to catch you speeding or something like that, they might do that with an unmarked car. Now, the thing that makes it difficult is, it used to be back in the day, I think, they had all those Crown Vics. And I think they would just have some of them be unmarked. Some of them, I think you can even get them where you can take the bar off the top that has the lights and stuff like that. But
I think my dad got one of those.
I listen, buying that stuff at auction is another thing that I have done in my life. So the problem with the Crown Vics is they get like 5 blocks to the gallon. Right. I mean, you know who buys them? At least it goes back a few years, but I was at an auction and some guy told me, and some guy telling you something is always incredibly reliable, fully fact-checked information. But some guy told me that like people from OPEC countries buy them and they even ship them back there because the Crown Vics are so overpowered. They just have like way more horsepower than is really needed to pull their weight. And so that, in oil-rich countries where they don't mind that they get, 16 blocks per gallon, they were very, very sought after. But so the state cops, what they do is they use a lot of cars that are like Camaros and Mustangs and Ford Explorers and Toyota Camrys and Honda Accords. They use those as unmarked. Anybody can avoid an unmarked Crown Vic. Like on principle, a Crown Vic goes anywhere near you on the highway. You just slow down, right? I mean, who knows who's driving it? It could be your grandmother. You don't know, but the chances that it's a cop car are high. And what the Connecticut State Police did about that was they just started getting cars that didn't look like cop cars. But so anyway, that's why you almost got in one. But it would have been, you should preserve the tape of this in case you do it again, because that'd be a very hard thing to explain to the cops. No, I really thought this was my car. That's why I have a coat hanger and I'm trying to break into a police car right now. All right. So anyway, I'm sorry about all that. I'm sorry about everything, really. I don't know. We really only have a minute. I'm going to see if Claudia can do this in a minute. Here we go. Claudia, what can you give me in 60 seconds? I'm starting the timer right now.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Yep.
So DeSantis, what does woke even mean? Arresting citizens that thought they could vote. Police were sympathetic. Cases in court cleared them. Using taxpayer money to send Texas residents to Martha's Vineyard. Expedited because rights were violated, so he literally helped them. Parents' rights that already existed against free speech for corporations. Very authoritarian, removing duly elected DA. Rewrote maps that redistrict. It took away the Democratic-leaning districts. When there was a hurricane, he extended the ability of Republican-leaning districts.
I do. You did a great job. You've done fabulously, Claudia. I'm actually now legally required now to say the following has been an announcement paid for by Citizens Against Ron DeSantis. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I don't approve this ad. All right. Thanks very much for listening. It's been another Ask or Tell Me Anything. Some guy on Twitter says it's like watching paint dry when it's very humid. We might use that as a slogan. Have the lawyers see whether we can get that or not. Anyway, many more things to come this week. Stay with us.